In the quiet village of Orison, Aisha sat by the window of the small house she had lived in for the past 15 years. The home belonged to her husband's parents, who had taken her in when her husband, Jide, left for America in search of a better life. She was 2 months pregnant when he left, promising to return with wealth that would transform their lives. At first, letters came. Then phone calls. Then, silence. Jide's parents were kind but old-fashioned. They reminded her that a good wife waits, that a true woman remains faithful. And she did. She raised their son, Tobi, alone, telling him stories of the great father he would one day meet. But deep down, loneliness gnawed at her soul. She had no one to ask about Jide's whereabouts, no number to call, no address to write to. She only had hope. Years passed. Aisha learned to work with her hands, sewing clothes, selling food at the village market, anything to provide for Tobi. He grew into a fine boy, tall and intelligent, asking questions about a father he barely knew. Aisha would only smile and say, "He will come back." One day. That day came on a humid afternoon. Aisha was returning from the market when she heard whispers in the streets. People murmured, glancing at her with pity. She followed their stares to a black SUV parked in front of her home. The door opened, and Jide stepped out. For a brief moment, Aisha's heart leaped. He was back. Her prayers had been answered. But then, another door opened, and a woman emerged, tall, elegant, with a proud stance. Behind her, 2 children stepped out, their American accents filling the air. Jide smiled, but it wasn't the smile Aisha remembered. It was forced, almost guilty. "Aisha," he began, voice hesitant. "It's been so long." Aisha stood frozen. The air around her felt suffocating. The villagers stared, waiting to see her reaction. Her hands trembled, clutching the basket she carried. She swallowed hard. 15 years, Jide. Her voice was steady, but her soul shook. 15 years, and not even a letter. Jide sighed. Things changed. Life happened. I tried to reach out. Aisha let out a bitter chuckle. "You tried." She turned to his new family. The woman was already ushering the children inside her house. Aisha's house. Tobi appeared at the door, confusion on his face. He was now 15, the same number of years Jide had been gone. "Who is he?" Tobi asked. Aisha's chest tightened. How could she tell her son that the man standing before them, the one who had abandoned them, was his father? Jide took a step forward. "Tobi, I'm your father." Tobi's face twisted in anger. "My father? A father doesn't disappear for 15 years. A father doesn't forget his family." Silence. The villagers stood watching, waiting for Aisha to break, to crumble under the weight of betrayal. But she didn't. She had survived too much to be broken now. She lifted her chin, dignity intact. "This is still my home, Jide. And my sons." I stayed. I waited. but I am not the same woman you left behind." Jide lowered his gaze. He knew he had lost something precious. Aisha turned to Tobi. "Come inside." And with that, she walked past Jide, past the woman, past the children who bore no resemblance to her own. She had waited long enough. Now, she would leave. Years later, Aisha and Tobi built a new life, one without Jude. At first, Jide tried to be too involved, but Tobi wanted nothing to do with him. The wound of abandonment was too deep. Aisha, too, refused to entertain his presence. She had spent 15 years surviving without him. She didn't need him now. Determined to create a better future, Aisha expanded her small business. With time, she became one of the most respected traders in the village, known for her skill and resilience. Tobi, inspired by his mother's strength, excelled in school. He earned a scholarship to study in the city, later traveling abroad for university. Jide. He left, returning to his new life, but regret never left him. He had hoped for forgiveness, for a second chance. But some things, once broken, could never be repaired. Years later, when Tobi graduated with honors, Aisha stood by his side, proud and fulfilled. She had waited long enough for a happiness that never came. Now, she was finally free. Jide's regret grew heavier with each passing year. His new marriage wasn't as perfect as he had imagined. The love he had chased in America slowly faded, replaced by arguments and distance. Meanwhile, he heard of Aisha's success, how she had raised Tobi into a brilliant young man, how she had built a name for herself. One day, after his second marriage crumbled, Jide returned to Horizon. He was a different man now, older, humbled, desperate. He stood at Aisha's doorstep once again, but this time, he wasn't the confident man who had once walked away. "Aisha," he said, voice softer than before. "I was a fool. I lost everything that truly mattered." Aisha studied him. The years had changed him, but they had also changed her. She was no longer the woman who once waited by the window. "You left, Jide," she said. "And I learned to live without you." "I know," Jide admitted. "But if there's any space left in your heart for me, even as a friend, I will spend the rest of my life making things right." Winning Aisha back wasn't easy. He stayed in the village, helping where he could, proving his sincerity not just through words, but through actions. He supported her business, encouraged Tobi's dreams, and most importantly, never pushed for forgiveness. He only earned it, little by little. And maybe, just maybe, with time, Aisha's heart softened. Not because she needed Jide, but because she had grown strong enough to choose whether to let him in again or let him go for good. Hope you enjoyed my story. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. We will always notify you of new story from this channel.